might be on mute.
Commissioner Widola. I see him raising his hand. All right, we got him. All right. Commissioner Giles.
Here.
Commissioner Harsh.
Present.
Commissioner Bance.
Present.
And I see other people logged in, and I don't see that any of them are Commissioner Brown yet. So we'll move on. So Commissioner Widola, we give it one more shot to see if we have you're on, I see you're on mute. All right. Is it working yet? Okay, so we'll have you raise your hand, and then if you have any comments or questions, just type them in the text message. Does that work for you? All right. Oh, that works too when we see you. All right. So we have for the first agenda item is our consent agenda, which consists of the October 27th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read them? I have submitted Scribner errors to Erica Palmer. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda with the any other Scribner errors or edits that need to be made. I do not see anybody raising hand. We'll take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Kai.
Yay.
Commissioner Widola. Yes. Commissioner Giles.
Yes.
Commissioner Harsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Bance.
Yes.
And I vote yes also. So the motion passed. We're going to go on to council liaison announcements. I didn't see. Has Councilor Scott?
Councilor Scott may be in the work session still.
That's right. They have a council work session. So if he joins us later, we'll either take him before our hearing, in between hearings, or after the last hearing if he's able to attend later. So moving on to staff announcements.
Great. I just have a couple announcements this evening. The first announcement has to do with the comprehensive plan update. Next Tuesday at 5:30, there is going to be a joint work session with Planning Commission and City Council to review the housing goals and policies that we've been working on for the past 6 months. We are also in our infrastructure comprehensive block theme. We had a CAC and TAC meeting last month on October 28th, and we're planning for another meeting in mid-December to review some draft goals and policies for that theme. I think sorry, I see a chat going on. I just want to make sure. Oh.
Rick needs 5 minutes after we get done, so we'll take a break after you get done with the update.
Okay, great. For the joint work session next week, a Microsoft Teams invite will be sent. I just want to let you know that. On December 8th is our next Planning Commission meeting. On that meeting date, we will have a site plan review for the Willamette Water Supply site area, which is just located on 124th, just south of the Trammell Crow site that was approved a few months back. We're also going to have a work session that evening about our residential housing code update and give you, a background for this work. We'll talk about the work that, staff and the consultants have been doing. The past couple months looking at our code. We are in the middle of a code audit. So you'll be seeing a draft of that code audit on December 8th. And we'll have some policy questions for you as well that evening for you to think about during the month of December. Because starting in January, I expect that we will have a work session about this residential code update once a month. So just be prepared for that. The North Sherwood concept plan. I forwarded you an email to the link to the project page that's up on our website. Next Tuesday evening as well, you'll be hearing more about this project and learning about the background, the process, and the next steps for that project as well. On December 8th, I will also present to you an update about the recreational marijuana ballot measure that recently passed. City Council is having a work session this evening, actually, kind of about that ballot measure and the work that was previously done in 2016. So I'll have more information to share with you on December 8th about that. And I'm done.
All right, so Commissioner Widola will need to reboot his computer, so we're going to take, or did
I have successfully done that. Do I have audio now?
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. Sorry about that.
That's great. All right. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, so next agenda item are community comments, and community comments would be written submissions received 24 hours in advance, not related to our hearing items. Did we receive any?
We have not received any community comments.
Okay, so then we're going to move on to new business. And the first new business is our public hearing. Okay, so we are going to call to order the public hearing on case file 2020-13 PUD Denali Summit. Maintain compliance with public meeting laws and pursuant to House Bill 4212, this meeting is being conducted electronically. The public notices for this meeting stated that citizen comments and testimony for this public hearing had to be submitted in writing at least 24 hours in advance in order to be included in the record. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report, then questions, if any, by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. The applicant will have 30 minutes split between presentation and rebuttal. As previously noted, public testimony for this hearing was required to be submitted in advance in writing. Staff will read the first 4 minutes of comments received. The full text of the comments has been provided to the hearing's body and the applicant in advance of this hearing and will be included in the record in its entirety. The rebuttal from the applicant will be the remainder of their 30 minutes. There'll be final comments by staff, questions of staff or the applicant by the commission. We will then close the public hearing and no other comments will be heard from the public or the applicants. Then discussion and deliberation by the commission. The commission's role in this decision this evening is to make a recommendation to the city council, and the city council makes the final decision on the PUD portion of this application. A decision may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. In reaching a decision on the application, the Commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report, which was included in the materials for this meeting posted on the city's website. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the Commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an appeal to City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again with enough detail to allow the Commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I will take a roll call to ask members of the Commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please state none or indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. So Vice Chair Kai,
I have none.
Commissioner Widola,
None.
Commissioner Giles,
I have none.
Commissioner Harsh,
None.
Commissioner Bance,
None.
and as a active member of the community, I was been involved in other hearings that are part of public record, and I was actually on the original committee for the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, which is also a part of the public record, but I don't believe that creates any bias in my ability to participate in this hearing this evening. Does the applicant wish to challenge any Planning Commission members' ability to participate this evening?
No.
Okay. So the planning staff will now present the staff report.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and Planning Commissioners. I'm going to share my screen on my other computer here. We'll just do a quick IT check. So now you should see the first page of the PowerPoint. Does everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, great. Good evening, Chair Simpson and Planning Commissioners. My name is Eric Rutledge, Associate Planner at the City of Sherwood. Happy to be presenting the staff report for Land Use Application 2020-013, which is Denali Summit. The applicant is proposing a 41-lot single-family residential subdivision and planned unit development in the very low-density residential zone. PUD applications are processed as a Type 5 land use action pursuant to the Development Code. As Chair Simpson mentioned, the Type 5 hearing authority is the City Council, and the appeal authority is the Land Use Board of Appeals. Tonight, the Planning Commission's role is to make a recommendation on the application, which will be forwarded to the Sherwood City Council for a final decision. For anyone following along at home, let me get my laser pointer up here. The application materials are available on the city's website at this link here. I just want to go over quickly the approval process because it is a little bit unique with the PUD. We're here tonight in red, the Planning Commission recommendation. The next step would be hearing before the City Council, which is scheduled for December 15th. They would make the final decision on the PUD and preliminary plat. And then it will actually come back to Planning Commission, and you will review the final plat and the final development plan. Any of the conditions of approval that are required to be met prior to the step, you will be reviewing those. Once that is approved, then the plat can actually go on to Washington County for recording, which would then create those lots. Notice of the application was routed to affected agencies on September 30th, 2020, and agency comments have been incorporated into the findings and exhibits of the staff report. Public notice of the application was provided in accordance with Section 16.72 of the Development Code, including mailed notice to property owners within 1,000 feet of the site. As of the time of this hearing, we did receive one public comment. It came in around 6:15 p.m. I'll share that with you at the end of the presentation, and we can chat about getting that into the record. The applicable chapters of the Development Code are shown on this slide for reference, and just as a reminder, the recommendation and final decision is required to be made based off of the approval criteria shown here. The site location, the development site is outlined here in red. It's east of Murdoch Road and north of Ironwood Lane here in the city of Sherwood. These three parcels here, you can see this purple line is the city boundary. So the site is on the east side of the city limits. Existing conditions, the development site contains 3 parcels containing approximately 15 acres. 2 of the properties contain existing single-family homes. You can see one here and one here. Both these homes are proposed to remain as part of the development. The site has an undulating topography that is vegetated with trees, shrubs, and grass fields. Based off the latest data from Metro Maps, the site does not contain any wetlands or a 100-year floodplain. The Rock Creek corridor is here to the east of the site, and the topography slopes down here after the eastern boundary of the site and slopes down to Rock Creek. This is wetland and floodplain, but off the site. Also related to existing conditions, the development site was historically part of the 40-acre Ken Foster farm, and because of that has contaminated soils. The farm was used for discarding animal hides and carcasses from a nearby tannery. I'll go into a little bit of detail. Liquid sludge from the tannery's wastewater settling tanks was also distributed on the site. The applicant is responsible for soil cleanup as part of the development and is actively working with DEQ on that process. There is a condition of approval recommended that the applicant submit a no further action confirmation from DEQ prior to the city accepting the public improvements. The development site is surrounded by private property in all directions, and a portion of the southern boundary abuts Southwest Ironwood Lane. This aerial shows the different subdivisions and PUDs that have been approved surrounding the area. So Ironwood Lane was approved for 4 lots as through the subdivision process. Denali Lane planned unit development PUD was approved in 2018 for 7 lots. And Denali Meadows to the west of this site was also approved as part of the PUD 13 lots. The one of the builders for this current proposal was the same builder for Denali Lane and also Denali Meadows. This property to the north is a 12.4 acre site. Right now, it currently just has a single family home on it, but it is part of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, and the street that's coming proposed through this subdivision will be stubbed here and eventually continue through this property to the north, eventually connecting to Upper Roy, and I'll have a slide on that in just a second. The site is zoned very low density residential, and as I mentioned, in the Southeast Sherwood Master Planning area. That planning area is shown here in purple, site shown here in red. The development code allows a maximum density of 4 units per acre if the proposal conforms to the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan and also receives PUD approval. The applicant has provided a narrative that demonstrates compliance with the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan criteria, and of course is also requesting approval as part of the PUD approval as part of this application. The final proposed density is 3.34 units per acre, which is allowed, which is between the allowed density of 0.7 to 4.0 units per acre. This is just for reference, the planned unit development approval criteria. I won't go through all of them, but just in case we need them for reference, there they are. Same with the planned unit development criteria. Oh, sorry. So this is the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan approval criteria, and this is the planned unit development approval criteria. Both are just here for reference. All right, the preliminary overview of the preliminary plat. So a total of 41 single-family lots are proposed, including the 2 existing homes. The lot sizes would range from 10,004 square feet to 20,886 square feet, with an average lot size of approximately 11,100 square feet. All of those 41 lots are shown here in this light yellow. 1.4 acres of open space is proposed. That's shown here in these different tracks in green. The open space will include pedestrian pathways that connect the east and west ends of the site. Pedestrian easement is also proposed here between the private streets, Tract E and Tract F. This blue tract here is a regional storm water facility, which would collect and then treat stormwater runoff, surface water runoff from the development. In terms of public and private streets and right-of-way, the main public street will be one extending from Ironwood Lane, new intersection here, both local residential streets. The street will come up, curve around, and then be stubbed to this north property line. The internal lots here will be proposed to be served by private tracks D, E, and F, 1, 2, and 3. This road right here is being constructed now as part of the Denali Meadows subdivision. And so this developer applicant would be responsible for just continuing it, this little small portion here. And then there's also just a really small little sliver of right-of-way dedication that's required here. This portion of roadway will not be constructed as part of this development. The land will be dedicated for future road improvements, and this would remain as open space. This is where Upper Roy meets Murdoch, and so Upper Roy would be extended west through this northern lot. And I have another slide in just a second that will show that a little bit more clearly. In terms of the development standard, as part of the PUD approval, the applicant is requesting an exception to certain development standards. The exceptions would be shown here on the right-hand column. The narrative states that the request is due to the topographical conditions of the site, and that the builder would like to have flexibility in home placement in order to avoid grading and site disturbance in areas that have constraints. The physical constraints, namely being the hard bedrock that's there, the basalt bedrock, and then also the slopes that are there. The applicant has provided 2 architectural pattern books that provide details on the building design and material. The housing types are compatible with surrounding residential developments, including Denali Meadows and Denali Lane. Sherwood's development code requires 1 off-street parking space per dwelling unit for single-family residences. The applicant is proposing a minimum of 1 off-street parking space located on the private driveway of each property, which meets this criteria. All right, moving on to open space. The planned unit developments require dedication of 15% of the buildable portion of the site as open space. The applicant is proposing 3 open space tracts totaling 1.4 acres, Tract A here, Tract C here, and also Tract G, which equates to 14.98% of the buildable portion of the site. Less than 15% open space can be approved if the development is located in close proximity to the 2 existing public spaces that, when combined with the open space provided as part of this development, meet or exceed community needs. The staff report explains that approximately 12,000 square feet of open space above the 15% requirement was provided in the 2 adjacent Denali PUDs, Denali Summit, or I'm sorry, Denali Lane down here, and then also Denali Meadows over here. In addition, all the open space throughout these 3 developments will be connected via sidewalks and open space. And staff finds that the overall system between the development can meet community needs, and I'll have some additional detail on the next slide. The plans indicate pedestrian pathways will be provided within the open space tracks. However, the details on the landscaping and other public amenities have not been provided at this time, but they are required as a condition of approval to be reviewed by the Planning Commission as part of the final development plan. Just some, I guess, context for the open space being provided and sort of how that relates to what would normally be required if the development or if the area was providing a public park, standard traditional park system. Here on the left is the open space provided through these three developments. Denali Summit, which you're reviewing tonight, 1.3 acres. Denali Meadows, 0.69 acres of open space. And Denali Lane provided 0.48 acres of open space for a total of 3 acres approximately for 61 single family lots. This 3 acres equates to about the size of a neighborhood park, which are generally between about 2 and 5 acres. In terms of the level of service and how many people a neighborhood park can serve, a minimum of 1 acre is required to serve 500 people. And as this number grows here, this number also grows, but not at the same ratio, a little bit less as this number grows. In terms of the location, the open space or park would need to be provided within a half mile of the residences, and the amenities are based off the community need, what type of development is going in and what the surrounding amenities might be in terms of park space and amenities in nearby locations. In addition, single-family subdivisions are required to provide a 40% tree canopy over the net development site. The required canopy coverage can be met through preserving existing trees, planting new trees in public spaces, or through street trees. For this development, 40% equates to approximately 182,000 square feet of tree canopy. There is condition of approval B13 in the staff report that requires the applicant to provide a revised landscape plan showing that the minimum required tree canopy is met. That would also be reviewed through the final development plan by Planning Commission. The applicant has provided a tree preservation and removal plan that shows the location of existing trees on the site. The plans indicate all of the trees in Tract A and Tract G are proposed for removal. In addition, just something that staff was picking up on, it appears based off satellite imagery that there are some mature trees right here, right at the edge of the east property line. Those weren't shown on the existing conditions plan, so we just want to make sure that these trees are either actually off the site, or if they are here, that they get inventoried and then protected. And so because of that, staff is recommending 2 conditions of approval related to trees within the open space tracts. Condition of approval B12 would require verification of all of the trees within the tracts. And really, we're really just talking about trees here, just making sure that they're either off the site or if they are on the site, that they get inventoried. And condition of approval B13 would require preservation of all of the trees within these 3 open space tracts, unless an arborist report recommends removal. And I just want to clarify, staff is only asking for an arborist report for trees within the open space tracts that are shown on the plat. And so, there's some other trees in these areas. We're not requesting an arborist report for those, but just the ones here in these open space tracts. I touched briefly on the street system already, but just to reiterate, public and private streets will be used. There's also the pedestrian pathway system that is shown here, 2 easements provided between these lots with the north-south running pathway here with a vantage point over the creek and towards Mount Hood to the east. Here is the neighborhood circulation map that shows how the future street system could be connected through the property to the north. So this development would stub the street here and provide availability for the street to continue through the property to the north, curving to the west, and then eventually connecting at a new updated intersection with a new street here, Murdoch Road and Upper Roy Street. And of course, this would, the pattern that is shown here is assuming that this property would be developed under roughly the same density as the development in front of you tonight. Of course, the applicant is also proposing and required to provide public infrastructure to serve the new development. Sanitary sewer and water would be provided within the private and public streets and connect to the city's existing public infrastructure. Same with stormwater. You can see the sort of outline of the design here. Surface water be collected, run down the private street, public and private streets, and eventually end up here in the stormwater facility at the south corner of the site. And then the one public comment that we did receive, again, this came in very recently around 6:15 this evening. It was from Mr. Lopez. He lives west of Murdoch Road on Division Street. So the existing development subdivisions to the west of this across Murdoch Road. Mr. Lopez expressed concern that the new development would obstruct the current panoramic view that he and his family enjoy from his property. Mr. Lopez stated that he and his family are unable to picture the outcome of the proposed new construction. I think the issue is just not really understanding, exactly where based on the plans, exactly where the development is and exactly how it would affect the view. The staff recommendation, and actually I'll just address the comment very quickly. I haven't had time to review all of the code criteria in relation to this comment, but based off of my knowledge of the code criteria, there is within the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan area a criteria that some of those viewpoints sort of be protected, and that the development sort of take advantage of those viewpoints within the planning area, but it does not address vantage points from other areas of the city. And so staff's and I guess response to this comment is that right now it does not address any applicable criteria. The staff recommendation, staff finds that application LU 2020-013 Denali Summit will meet the requirements of City Code as described in the findings and conditions of approval in the staff report dated November 3rd, 2020, and therefore staff recommends Planning Commission forward the application to City Council for approval subject to the findings and conditions described in the staff report. That concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Before I call for questions of the staff for that, on one of your slides, you referenced the setbacks. I don't know if you can pull up your slideshow, but you used MRDL as your setback criteria in your report. And
thank you. That would just, yeah, thank you for catching that. That would be a typo. I can double check quickly to just make sure that the setbacks in that column are actually the VLDR PUD standards, but I believe that's just going to be a typo.
Okay. All right. That if we can make sure we're clear on that.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions directed to staff regarding the staff report itself before we call for the applicant? Commissioner Giles?
Yeah, and I don't have the number of the slide here, but on the park amenities, you said it will be determined by need. Who determines that need?
If the, so these park standards on the right here, these are coming from our comprehensive plan. And so, it's a little bit of a different, development type. This is open space that will be maintained by the HOA, and this is park space that the city would take over. And I can pull up some example amenities that are standard for a neighborhood park. But I think what this is getting to is really just taking a look at, what the surrounding development is. Is it high density residential apartments, that may lead to a certain type of, certain types of amenities in a park versus Is this in a more rural area, and say, a different type of amenity might be appropriate. So I think it would just be determined at the time that the park is provided what amenities are suitable. The park's master plan may also have some information based off of different specific sites of what amenities are appropriate. But for neighborhood parks, this is kind of just your standard neighborhood park. You might have concrete walking paths, benches, picnic tables.
Okay, right. And yeah, so I get that that's for our standard. So if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying that the 3 acres that is proposed for this is just open space. There's no amenities that are built into this. It's just, I don't know, grass?
So I can perhaps pull up the plans, or maybe the applicant can, but right now and actually let me just go to that. Oh, there we go. So there is a walking path based off the plans that are submitted right now. There's a walking path that's proposed in Tract A, so a walking path here, and then also walking paths here. But we have not received additional details on what the amenities, specific amenities are proposed in the open space tracts. So right now, landscaping and walking paths are proposed.
So that'd be a question of the applicant when he provides
Okay.
information. Do you have also a picture of before the applicant completes their testimony, of the Southeast Master Plan? If it was in your presentation, I missed it.
I didn't provide alternative BC. I do have it in the exhibits. I just have to pull up a different screen. Do you want me to pull that?
Just because when we go to discussion, I will be asking questions about it. So just prior to the applicant completing his testimony.
Sure.
Commissioner Vance?
Yeah, hi there. Looking at the units, what is this, 34 through 41 north of Tract A, when those are built, how do people get to them? Because the road there's no road that goes to Murdoch connecting here. Is one going to be built as part of this proposal, or how do people get to those houses?
Yeah, very, very good question. So you mentioned these lots here, 40, 34, and 41. Right now right now lot 34 is accessed from a private driveway that just comes off of Murdoch Road. But so you can kind of see the start of the road here as part of Denali Meadows, which was approved last year. And if you drive by the site, all of this is currently graded, in preparation of site development. And so a new street will be constructed as part of this development. It's going to Ironwood Lane is about right here, and there will be a new public street that extends north. And then this developer will construct just this small portion and continue that road. So a new public street right here.
So that road will be in by the time those houses go up, basically?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And my second question is the two homes that are already there, have those homeowners presented any comments or anything to staff that this commission should consider or hear?
Another great question. They have not provided any any comments, any formal testimony. The property owner here would also be the builder of the lots on this property. And the applicant may be better suited to sort of speak to that and sort of the existing property owners that are there. But as of this hearing, we have not had any comment from the two existing property owners. I think they're involved in the process, but have not provided comment. I did hear from just sort of really informally from I think one of the real estate or brokers representing this property here, and they just asked for the link to the hearing, so they're kind of tracking it.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, I do have a question regarding, I believe it was lot 35.
Yeah.
Can you just point out which lot that is on?
Looks like it's
And-
gonna,
And so is it which frontage portion? So it would be the portion to the left that is requesting the smaller frontage width.
34. So that would be this property, this lot here.
Oh, okay.
It is the one with the existing home on the property. And so I don't know if I can zoom in here. Let's see. There we go. So the reduced width is really just, I guess, aimed to provide enough space to provide a driveway up into the existing home, and then sort of maximizing the area provided on a new lot 41, that would be provided adjacent to it.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Eric, I'm trying to get a timer. I don't know if you have a timer or some way to, I'm going to put a stopwatch on because we have 30 minutes.
I have a timer.
You have a timer, and then you'll give us a heads up when we have like 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Thank you. Then I will not try and do that at the same time I'm trying to write notes. All right. So I don't have my traditional blue cards to be able to call someone out by name and mispronounce it. So Erica, if you want to introduce the applicant for this evening, or the applicant's available to introduce him.
Yes, I can do that if you'd like, Erica.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, just one quick request. Eric, if you could leave up the last layout you had there, just so we can all continue to look at the subdivision, that would be fantastic. So good evening. My name is Steve Miller, and I'm with Emario Design, 6445 Southwest Fallbrook Place, number 100, Beaverton, Oregon, 97008. This is our team here. We have both the owners of the property. So we have the Millers, and we have Tim Roth, who is purchasing the Uzon property. Another member of our team stepped away for a minute, but we have Eric Evans here, our engineer, as well. So we really want to thank you for holding this meeting tonight. I know it's a little bit different than in the past when we got to meet you in person, but it looks like a lot of familiar faces. So that's great. And hopefully you recognize all of us from the past developments that we've done in this area. Also want to thank staff for all their help in getting here tonight. We've been working closely with Eric and Erica, and we appreciate the staff report and the detailed presentation tonight. So in an effort to be brief and not take up too much of people's times, I won't go into another presentation because I think Eric hit all the highlights that are what we should probably be talking about tonight, and maybe just clarify a couple things. So we do really appreciate the slide that Eric shared showing the open space that we're providing for this project and kind of some of the standards that you have for neighborhoods when it comes to what you would look for neighborhood parks serving residential areas. And so we think we've done a good job of providing some open space that's comparable to what you would be looking for in a residential neighborhood. In terms of the amenities that will be in the open space areas, you've seen the detailed plans for the property to the west, which is the Murdoch, or the, Denali Meadows subdivision. And we did extensive landscaping along Murdoch, and we provided a trail that ties into Murdoch. And so now you can walk from Murdoch into the project site and connect across the street into another open space that we backed up into the open space onto this property. And you can come all the way through down to the sidewalk and walk over to the large open space on the east side of the project, and then loop back through. And so we have a looping kind of a network of trails, sidewalks, pedestrian access easements, and so forth. So it is a pretty comprehensive open space plan that we're providing. And as Eric mentioned, we are going to be providing a detailed landscape plan as part of the final development plan. So you'll get to see the landscaping that will go in there and the additional amenities that we'll provide in those spaces. And so I think you'll be able to get a better picture as we continue through the process and we get to that final development plan. We've been hearing all the comments that you've provided, and so we understand that we need to make sure that we dress it up very nicely and provide some amenities that will represent a quality open space. So I think that's coming, and so just ask you to be patient for that, and we will make sure you get a chance to see that with the final development plan. The other thing that's nice about the open space in this area is we were backing up that large tract there, C, to the Rocky Creek corridor. So it's actually providing additional bufferage, if you will, for that corridor. And it's also going to provide a wonderful scenic view for the residents to go into that area. They'll be able to see Mount Hood and that corridor. And so it should provide a lot of wildlife viewing and other just general viewing pleasures, if you will, for that side of the city. In terms of the rest of the project, I don't have a lot of specifics for you. I'd rather respond to your questions that you may have, but I think Eric really hit on all the highlights. This is a unique project where we originally came in with the Uzon property and we're trying to bring a street in where that water quality facility was. And just due to the intersections of Denali Lane and the easements that serve those homes to the east there, we couldn't do it. We couldn't meet the standards. And so the Miller family really stepped up and came to the table to work with us to come up with the layout that you see today, which was to bring the street up through their property and loop it over into the Uzon property. So that street location is very important. It's really the only place we could get into these properties just due to the existing transportation system that's in that area. So really, really thankful that they came along and that we could provide this comprehensive subdivision for your review tonight. One of the things that we do need to have 40% tree canopy coverage, so we're working on that. There's extensive street trees that will be provided along that street, as well as in the open space areas and on each lot. So we do have that plan in motion, and we'll have that ready for you again when we come in for the final development plan review. We did present both of these projects to the neighborhood. I think at both those meetings, we had about 3 or 4 people in attendance. One was actually pre-COVID, and we met at the fire station and had a nice meeting there. And then the second one was like this, and we had a few people in attendance and really didn't get any negative comments. We really got comments about when were the lots going to be ready, because people were interested in moving into the subdivision. So that was quite nice to see. I think at this point I will stop commenting and leave the rest of my time to answer the Planning Commission's questions. And then in case there's any additional comments that we need to provide at the end, I'll use that time for our rebuttal.
All right, thank you very much. Erica, how much time would he have available for comments?
Oh, let's see here. That was, sorry, 24 minutes.
Okay, so I have some kind of big question for the applicant regarding compliance with the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. And I don't know if if there was any written public testimony that we wanted to introduce into the record that has not already been introduced before we go down that path.
So I guess just that the comment that was emailed over to me around 6:15 p.m. In terms of getting that into the record, what would be the best way? So I have it in email form right now in my inbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Erica?
So Eric,
Eric, you're muted.
thank you. I'm sorry about that. We will make an exhibit number for that public testimony, and it is entered into the record.
I can also share my screen. Well, yeah, I could probably share my screen and, so we can get a visual of it. I don't know if that's needed or not at this time.
You provided a summary.
Okay.
I guess I'd just like to make one comment on that. As presented by the chair in opening the meeting, all written comments had to be received 24 hours prior to the meeting. That one came in after the close of business today at 6 o'clock. We've not had a chance to see it. I'm not too concerned about it because it does not address any of the applicable criteria. There's no view corridors across Murdoch that are applicable to this project. So first, I'd like to say, do not enter it into the record. It arrived too late. It should not go in. If you do allow it to go in, I guess our feel is it really has no merit.
Okay. So the city council, if we don't continue this hearing, the city council hearing is also de novo. So that written comment can be held over to their hearing and give you an opportunity to read it and respond to it appropriately. Correct, Erica?
That is correct.
Okay. So if that helps dispel with any confusion of having submitted information after the deadline. So we'll take that in. That's acceptable. So I guess I'm going to put this out there, and as I mentioned at the opening, I was part of the original Southeast Sherwood Master Plan when this was set up, and that area is zoned very low density residential, so 1 unit per acre. So someone would reasonably expect that 15 houses would go in a 15-acre parcel. And understanding the constraints that that property was under, the citizens in that area got together along with the neighborhood and other community members and came up with the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. And in doing the master planning, one of the amenities that was brought forward as the kind of the gem or the center stone of this project was going to be a park at the top of the hill. And so as these other smaller developments have come in around it, throughout the process, it's been an understanding that we would still be deferring for park, again, at the top of the hill, where community members from not just that area, but from the neighborhoods would be able to enjoy a park at the top of the hill overlooking the riparian corridor, the creek area, and out to Mount Hood. And so when I first saw this part of the project come in, I had expected to see what had been committed to from the beginning, which was a park at the top of the hill. And so I have noted in the staff report those applicable criteria that I don't believe have met the PUD requirements based on the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan overlay, which is why I've asked Eric to provide a picture of the Southeast Master Plan. I really appreciate that you are providing a buffer on the east side to the riparian corridor and a little bit of green space buffering, but I would like to hear the pathways. I don't, what the PUD is supposed to be is something that we couldn't normally get from the underlying zone, and what we are getting is what we would get with the underlying zone. 10,000 square foot houses. The pedestrian pathways appear to be what we would need through our transportation requirement for block sizes, because the length of the street would require pedestrian cut-throughs so that the block lengths aren't too long. So what we're left with is I think it's tract A in the corner that connects to the neighborhood next, to the west, but it's still vacant or void of the park that we had been talking about from the beginning of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. So I don't know if, Eric, you were able to find that master plan picture that demonstrates what I believe the community members, when this started, and envisioned.
If I could just make a couple comments on that. One, that location of the park is the location of the home that's being saved. So that created a bit of an issue there. Two, the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan is not adopted. It's essentially a tool, if you will, to help kind of say, here's some ideas that we would like you to try and incorporate into your project, but it's not adopted. And so we've used it as a guiding light to come up with the layout here. But, when that document was created, I don't think they knew what was going to happen. They didn't know what homes would be preserved. And I don't think they took into consideration the rocky topography and stuff that you have to deal with in this portion of the city to get streets put in and so forth. And so, Eric, I'm not sure if you can pull up that email I sent you, that PDF that kind of shows all the open space areas in this area of the project. But what you'll see is we intentionally backed up track A in this project to track D that was in the previous project, so we could get a larger space there. And so that does create a much larger area towards the top of the hill to give you some viewing areas. And then, like I said, we took the whole eastern side of the project and made that available as a buffer to put some amenities in, and also to provide that same experience that was contemplated in the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan of providing areas for people to see the amenities that are on the east side of these properties, which is Mount Hood and the Rock Creek corridor. So I think we met the intent, if you will, of what the plan was trying to achieve, which is 15% open space per parcel that's developed, clustering it in certain areas to try and get some enhanced views while they're in these areas, and then provide some amenities in there so they will stay and encourage them to come into these areas and utilize them. And so I think you are getting something that's greater than what you would get in a regular subdivision. And if you do a regular subdivision in Sherwood, you would not have 10,000 square foot lots. You would have smaller lot sizes. So these lots are double what you would find in most city developments at 10,000 plus square feet. In addition to that, we're also cleaning up an area of the city that was heavily contaminated with animal hides and horrible leaching of liquids and so forth. And so that's why when you did the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, there was some encouragement to get some density into this area to help offset the cost that it would take to clean up these lands and get them in a better shape. And so there's a trade-off throughout the whole process. We're going to give you a little bit more density so you can get some cleanup done, but we're also going to look for you to provide some open space that we wouldn't get in other projects. Because if it's just a straight subdivision, it would only be 5% open space in the city of Sherwood, not 15% open space. So you're getting a lot more with this project than you would get with a regular subdivision.
And I hear what you're saying. The 15% is larger because a PUD requires it. But the underlying zone is very low density residential, and the lot sizes there are 40,000 square foot. And so they're 1 acre lots. So what we would get in the underlying zone would be 15 houses, not 41. So that's where I'm coming from. And
again, though, if you look at the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan, it contemplates the density that we're proposing.
Yes, and I understand that. And they also contemplated a park at the top of the hill. And what I envisioned was more amenities, and maybe you're substituting in tract C with neighborhood amenities where the community can be invited is the trade-off. I don't know. I've put it out there. I've got other comments and concerns about some of the all the setback changes that we're doing, because we're doing 9 of the 41 lots have setback variation requests. So I don't want to take up everybody. I want to give other commissioners a chance to speak to this matter and to raise the questions that they had for the applicant before we spend a lot of time on this one particular matter, which is considering whether or not the open spaces provided are what would have been envisioned by the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. Because the other point is in your submittal, you commented that you have a lot of cleanup to do, but I also saw that DEQ did reimbursement to you. I don't know what percentage, but they did do contributions, financial contributions to help with the cleanup. So it is a trade-off back and forth, and I just trying to, for the community, we're supposed to be looking at a PUD for amenities and benefit to the community, and these are HOA open spaces that haven't really been flushed out to what the community as a whole is going to be getting versus just the homeowners there. So
Eric, do we have any type of composite of the different developments that have occurred and the open or green spaces in combination as a total versus looking at them separately?
We do, yeah. Let me pull that up. It wasn't in. I think the applicant had just put this together recently and sent it over to me via email. So this would be the first time it's coming into the record. But yeah, let me pull it up here. Sec.
I appreciate you doing that, Eric. I wasn't sure if I could share or not, so thank you for bringing that up.
And yeah, you should be able to, just for reference, if you do, you should be able to share from the Teams meeting here. Let's see. All right, just got that up. Let me share it. One sec. Sorry, I have too many things open here. Let me download. I need to download it first, and then I can open it. Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay.
Yes, so as you can see, we did back those two open spaces up together there, which is near the top of the hill. So the house that's on lot 34, that's where that open space in the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan BC alternative is generally located. So we're not very far from that spot with the two open space areas we're showing there. And then again, we more than maximize the open space by putting that in along the east. So I just don't think when you went through the master planning process, they anticipated those homes remaining.
So the combination of those two tracks, I think you said track D and A, what's the acreage or the square footage on those two combined?
Oh gosh, I don't have that off the top of my head. I can dig that up for you, but I don't have it at the moment.
Steve, which one is it?
It's track D in Denali Meadows and track A in this one.
A is 11,000. 11,000.
So A in the current proposal is 11,000 plus.
Yeah.
It's over 11,000 square feet. The other one I would anticipate being very similar in size. So it's probably about, I would anticipate that those two are about a half an acre together, close to that number.
So for clarity, those two open spaces and track C in the current PUD, what do you envision open space to entail? Is that going to be, you know, a path and, you know,
Well, if you look at, if you go to track D that's in the Denali Meadows, that one has, I believe there's benches, extensive landscaping, and you saw the plan. I know we don't all remember, but we can dig that up tonight if we have to go back and look at it. So there'll be a trail and some landscaping and some benches in track D. And then the trail will come through into track A. And we're still working on identifying, you know, what we will put into that space. But the trail will continue down to the sidewalk. And then again, you can follow the sidewalk along to connect into track C. You can come back out the top, go through tracks E and F and come back to the sidewalk. So the whole thing will be a looping system of trails and sidewalks internally to the project that can help move pedestrians through these spaces.
I have a size for you, Steve.
Pardon?
7916 square feet.
What's the total, Eric? What's the total? 20,000. So I just got an update.
48.
So the total of those two tracks is just short of 20,000 square feet. It's 19,900 and change.
okay, thank you. And my last question on the paths, are these built to the City of Sherwood standards for sidewalks or pedestrian paths?
The sidewalks, absolutely, would be built to your
I mean,
standard. Due to topography, if you're trying to get at, will they be ADA accessible? The slope, the hills alone will not allow that to happen. So we're still kind of going back and forth between a soft path and a hard path. There will be a pipe that runs down tract A, stormwater pipe. And so we're leaning towards a soft path in case that ever had to get dug up. So you wouldn't have to replace a hard surface.
okay. Commissioner Kai, did you have any more questions on the open park area?
I don't have any more questions. I mean, I have thoughts about it, especially comparing it to, you know, the illustration from the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan. I don't know if it's right now is the best time to talk about that, but I don't have any more questions necessarily. So.
Okay, I see Commissioner Giles had one, but it went away.
Well,
oh,
well,
right,
yeah, that's right. I was just going to say, as somebody who runs through this area, I would vote for a solid path, just over a soft path. We've had a problem, especially at the Sunset Park, with when they put a soft path in and it just rained out and caused all sorts of additional costs. Later down, they had to repave it and everything else. So I'm for a hard path on that.
So not being familiar with how steep the slopes are going out to track C and just looking at it from an amenities, on page 16 of the staff report, and this is the finding that one of the findings that I was looking at that says that within this PUD, there's a pedestrian-friendly transportation system that links the site with nearby residential developments, schools, parks, etc., and other destinations. And I just want to make sure that we're meeting this criteria with adequate pedestrian access. I have, you know, when you go to someone's neighborhood, how wide are these paths in between the houses? Because is it going to feel like you're walking in someone's yard to get to the open space? Or is it going to be clearly a open park type setting where people understand that they're walking to a site that is accessible and there's going to be availability for our community to reap a benefit of this tract C?
5 feet. Okay, so to answer that question a little bit, the paths will be 5 feet of concrete, but the actual opening, if you will. So if you're looking into tract C from the new proposed street, there's those 2 accesses between the lots. Those are 12 plus feet wide. One is 12 feet, the south one. The other one is 12.
Are you sure that?
Excuse me, the north one is 12 feet. The south one is 12.39 feet. So they're both 12 feet with a 5-foot path centered in the middle. That will be a hard surface.
Something seems wrong.
In terms of fencing that, I think that's a good point. We'll have to kind of look into that, but I don't think we want to create a tunnel effect. So there could be some lower fencing up front, maybe transitioning to a little bit higher privacy fencing so those lots that back up to it don't have everybody looking into their backyard. But I would imagine in the front part, we can keep that a little bit lower in the 3.5–4 foot range, so you can see over and then step it up towards the back of the homes.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Harsh, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My question was around the contamination site and the cleanup efforts that are being pushed onto. You guys are going to clean this up. What method did you select? In reading the reports, it didn't see what you were using to do this, and you guys are going to do this at the time of the build, correct?
I didn't get all of your question, but I understood that you were looking for the documentation on the cleanup. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, I was trying to, because in reading through the proposal from the DEQ, it looked like you guys had several choices of what cleanup methodology you were going to use. What was the chosen solution for cleanup for the site?
I defer to you on that. But I don't have the details.
For this particular, I'm Tim Roth. For this particular site, we haven't got a final approval on our work cleanup plan with DEQ. We're working with an environmental consultant, myself and the Millers, and we're finalizing that plan. So the process we go through is to look at the different options of cleaning the property, submitting it to DEQ on a work plan, working through the details of DEQ, getting approval, and then completing the cleanup. Now, with regards to the Denali Meadows, the cleanup plan consisted of exporting a considerable amount of the existing soils, going through a series of testing of the soils to determine if any of the soils or where the soils were that exceeded the limits, and removing those soils that were in excess of what was allowed. We're going to do something similar to that. We are allowed to consolidate in some areas on site for DEQ. So we're going to be looking at the opportunities to be able to do that. But I suspect that there'll be a certain amount of the soils that will have to be exported and taken to a certified dump site that DEQ has approved.
And so you're comfortable at the end of this that we're going to have property that's not going to, I mean, because the contaminants in the soil are pretty well-known carcinogenics, correct? I mean, these are pretty serious. I just worry about the nature of this subdivision. Very large homes. There's going to be large families, I expect. It just, kids doing normal kid stuff. It just seems like it could be quite hazardous. So I was just trying to get a comfortability with where you guys are going with it.
DEQ places a very, very low tolerance in their allowed soils that can be remained on site. And after the soils have been determined to be cleaned, they're going to require us to bring in and import a certain amount of what they deem as clean soils, and to cover the site with 12 to 24 inches minimally of imported soils. So it's a pretty stringent set of rules to follow with DEQ. So we're looking at what those options are going to be allowed, and trying to get approvals for our cleanup plan, which is the same process we went through on Denali Meadows.
And Denali Lane.
And Denali Lane.
So you've been down this road. Okay, thank you. That was the nature of my question. I just want to understand what you guys do.
So are there any other questions for the applicant?
Gene, on a question going back to the width for the spacing between fences, along tract C, the northern axis and the southern axis, if those are going to be, so is that 12 feet and then the additional frontage that's needed per the fence code, an additional 5 feet from that path, or is it 12 feet total?
The space between lot 10 and 11 is 12.39 feet wide.
So that's where the fences would then go up at the end of that measurement, right?
The fences will go up on lots 10 and 11 for those homes. And what we're saying is the first.
So from fence to fence, it would be that 12 point something measurement.
That's correct.
It's straight up 12, just for.
The 0.39 is part of the radius.
Yeah. So we'll just use a round number of 12 feet, but if you look at the plan, it's slightly more.
The fences will be on the private.
And then the fences will be on the lots.
If I can jump in, I think what your question is getting to, Commissioner Kai, is there also going to be an additional setback for the fence? I don't think that we would see these as corner lots here. Maybe Erica can clarify whether we've done that in the past, but since it's just a pedestrian pathway, I don't believe that we would then consider this a side yard with an additional setback for the fence.
So it wouldn't require an additional setback. That 12 feet would be sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, so that that setback for the fence and the fence, it really comes down to height, right? Because you can't put one on the property line; it's just related to height. I think that's really related to street corners. So, certainly at two public street intersections that would apply. Given that this is just a pedestrian pathway, it may make sense to put, like we were talking about, to not have the or not have that corridor effect where you have two 6-foot tall fences here. It may make sense to put 3.5 here, but I don't know that we would apply the that standard to these lots because it's a easement as opposed to a public street.
Okay.
I see Erica looking at her book. Maybe she's got clarity between, because we went back and forth on this so many times.
Oh, have we? Yeah, okay.
Right. So I remember there's a standard for like pedestrian access ways in our code when it talks about fences, and it talks about a lower fence height in those areas with so it would be similar to the pathways in Woodhaven and most recently Mandel Farm. I'm just trying to find it here.
So while Erica looks that up, just for clarification, all the lots that are within this project are adjacent to or abut what you would consider the rest of your ongoing, I'd call it the Denali project. So if I look at lots 11 and 12, where you're asking for reduced setbacks, the project that's adjacent to that, is that also one of your projects that
You're talking to the kind of the southeast there?
yes.
No. And the reason those lots were a little shallow. That's why they were the only two that were requested a reduced rear yard setback. Just kind of the odd shape with the way that corner turns there, they kind of pinched the lots down a little bit. So that's why we did not ask for that on every lot. It was specific to those just because of the way the street came into those lots.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that we're not, because, part of the other criteria is that setbacks that are reduced shouldn't be impacting existing neighborhoods. And so I was just trying to figure out, the other corners that you're asking for, they're corners to your own property. So it's, or a corner lot that is on a interior public street. But if we're impacting an existing neighbor, that's where I was trying to get clarity if 11 and 12 were part of this whole plan process that you were working on.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment. We've talked with these folks, and when you look at that, at those existing homes, there is one in the very north corner of that area, if you will. And it primarily, it's actually much closer to track C than track 11 or lot 11. And then the other houses kind of fan out towards the south and get further and further away. So the closest home is in that northeast corner, and it's really closer to track C than it is lot 11.
Okay. All right, Miss Erica, did I stall long enough for you to find
You did.
a fence code?
So our fence code states that you can have a 42-inch fence anywhere up to the property line. And then it also states that if a property owner were to install a 6-foot fence, it would have to be set back a minimum of 3 feet from the property line.
So if it's going right up to the property line or right up to that 12-foot, then it needs to be 42 inches. And if it's going to be 6 foot, then it needs to be an additional 3 feet back.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Erica.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Bance, you had a question?
Yeah, follow up, just to make sure I heard that right. So 11 and 12 back up to what? It sounds like there's a home that's actually closer to tract C, but otherwise it's just kind of, what is that, bare land maybe on the other side of that? I can't visualize that.
I think there was a better picture, and we went past it, and I kind of missed it because it looked like part of it was a driveway or something, that it wasn't abutting the home directly.
Sheet 15.
Do you have that aerial photo?
Yeah, let me.
Eric? Yeah, I think that'll help.
Sheet 15.
Or sheet 15, if you will, on the plan set.
One second. I'm actually just going to have to go back to our presentation here.
Well, I'll ask another question while he's finding that. Track C, what's the topography like? And I ask that because Commissioner Simpson, raised this comment about the master plan, parks, so forth, amenities. So I'm just kind of thinking, is that an opportunity over there if amenities can be built, if it's flat enough, or is it really just there's a trail and then nothing?
That area will be graded along with the rest of the site, but it will ultimately fall down to the east there. So there will be some slope, but we will have kind of a bench area, if you will, where we're showing the trail and whatnot that we can work with, and then it'll slope down more significantly from there.
I don't know if I got clarity on how much of that's available. Oh, there we go.
The bench at the top of the pathways will be flat. Everything else will have slope to it. Sheet 5 is a pretty good example.
So if the commissioners, if you have the plan set available to look at, if you look at sheet 5 of that plan set, that'll provide you with an idea of how that will be graded and where how wide that upper area will be. And then Eric brought up the slide that shows you the location of the closest home to those two lots, 11 and 12.
I have a question about the slope on this as well. So given that it slopes down, is that height fence, and this is just curiosity, is the height fence from the street height or from grade height? Like, if there's a rock wall or if there's something, is there something that is going to make that lot level? Where do you measure the height of the fence from?
Well, there's probably a whole thing written out in the code.
I know. If it's not an easy answer, I thought this might be an easy one for the city. I'm curious as to, are you counting from the street or from where the back of the lot is, or what? But
the height of the fence, I think it's from where the fence comes out of the ground.
Okay.
So
if your property varies in elevation, then your the fence will vary in elevation as well. But you'd have a consistent 6-foot height, let's say. You wouldn't be like, oh, sorry, your height here can only be 2 feet because your property is 4 feet higher further up the property. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
So I'm looking at tract C on sheet 5, and it looks like within the first few feet, it's going to be a drop of about 5 feet, and then over the rest of the lot, it drops 40 feet. So that's not really I guess I wouldn't say that's a park amenity because it's a 40-foot drop from where your path is to the edge of track C. Am I reading that correctly? It looks like it's going from 285 feet down to about 240 feet. Approximately.
As you can see, the portion closest to the lots is the flattest portion there. And you're right, as you get towards the north there, it will drop off more, just due to how that area of the property and the street and lots all interface. That rolls down that hill there a little bit more at that north end.
Okay.
But not as much at the south. The south is a little bit flatter.
Yeah, your topo lines are, it's like they end. Does the terrain change? Just looks
That's what becomes natural. Right?
interesting. Okay.
That's existing grade below the topo line.
Yeah, so what you see below those topo lines is that's where the existing grade is going to remain as it is today. So that's showing you the extent of the grading. And so the topo that's outside of those tighter lines there is going to remain natural. And that's why we're showing it that way. No
Okay.
grading will occur there.
And what's the width of track C? Because we're doing 40 to 280. So 45-foot drop in your graded topo line. What's the width of that? So we're talking a 1-to-1 drop off, it looks like, maybe?
Yeah, if you look on sheet 4, you'll see at the north end it's 108 feet, and at the south end it's 160 feet, just due to the angle of the line.
Oh my gosh, sorry, I need to mute. Okay, so I have that figured out.
Yeah,
And
so
so-
see that on sheet 4.
Yeah, I've.
Okay.
So your testimony was that this top of the hill park, based on where the Southeast Sherwood master plan originally had it, would have been lot 34, sorta.
Approximately, yes.
Approximately, I see 33, 34, 32, 41. That fourplex right there would have been about the top of the hill.
Correct.
So, and you're substituting that area with tract A and the adjacent tract D.
Correct. And then as well, track C. Those all together are supplementing that, I guess if you would, the top of the hill that was contemplated in the BC alternative, because the house is being retained.
Okay. And then Eric, were you able to find the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan BC alternative so we can get kind of an idea of what our vision was?
Yeah, let me pull that up one sec.
That level of detail.
And one thing you have to keep in mind when you're looking at that is it shows Denali Lane coming up through the project in a way that you couldn't get it to really go. I mean, we tried to do that, and the city would not allow it. And that is why the Millers came onto the project, and we had to move that street over to the west, just due to existing driveways and the Denali Street location intersection.
This was BC.
Okay, there we go.
So, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
So I'm Jacob Miller. I live there on 23008 Southwest Murdoch. We've owned that property for about 8 years. So just to be clear, your master plan stuck a park in the middle of a family's home. In the middle of two existing families' homes.
Right.
I live on the top of the knoll there. And then you've got the Uzons living on basically the top of the knoll. So you'd be asking people to tear down existing structures to put a park in, as opposed to potentially leaving existing oak trees where we've got tracks now.
I wanna add a comment as well. This master plan took into account not only the Denali Meadows, the Millers, the Uzons, as well as the Mosier property to the north, the 12-acre piece to the north. And if you look at this master plan, the envision was that you were going to consolidate a gross amount of the open space, if you will, into a conservative area that's located in the north corner of the Mosier property. On this master plan, you're showing potentially 6 acres of property that's retained as trees. And when you're dividing the properties up and you're developing the properties in the various parcels, as we have been doing, and we have to be in compliance with the 15% open space rule, it's impossible for us to meet your vision of consolidating open space into a 5-acre piece in the north corner of the Mosier property. It's not, it can't happen. So because we're not meeting the vision of having that park on the top of that knoll, we're also not going to be meeting the vision, satisfying the vision of consolidating open space into a 5-acre preserved area of trees or what have you. So that's not going to happen. What we are doing is we're satisfying the requirements of the PUD of creating a 15% open space per the plats as they are being developed. There's no idea what's going to happen on the Mosier piece. I don't think there's any applications in that. And I don't think that the city's going to require the developer of the Mosier piece to retain half of their property in an open space. Those trees are gone. Oh yeah, those trees are gone.
I was gonna say the trees aren't there anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah, she took those trees out. So, you know, there has to be obviously a little, there have to be some room when we're developing these parcels in separate, as opposed to one large master plan. We're doing them in sections, 5 acres, 10 acres. And then in the future, the 12-acre piece where the Mosiers is. So it's not going to be possible to meet the vision that was discussed and determined and voted on, I guess, back in whenever it was, the early 2000s.
Yeah, if I could just add to that a little bit more too. I think it's important that not only are the 2 homes on these 2 properties being retained, but the home over on the Murdoch property, which is now Denali Meadows, that home was also retained, and that open space shown on this alternative would have also gone through that home. And so they put the open spaces where the existing homes were located, and the irony is all those homes were retained for these projects. None of them were removed. And as Tim was saying, I think when you do these master planning efforts, it's envisioned that, oh, maybe one developer will be fortunate enough to acquire all this land at one time and really will have a chance at getting this to happen. But reality is they've gone down individually. We're very lucky to have this opportunity to have 2 together, but they have gone down separately, and that makes it more challenging to implement that vision, if you will, that was not adopted. And so, you know, if you go back and look at that BC alternative, Eric, if you can go back to that, you'll see that we did try and tie the trail in track C, so it can extend up into the Mosier property. So we are trying to get that trail connection along the east side there to tie up into the Mosier property, because we stubbed our trail to their property so they can pick it up. So there's elements of this plan that we are bringing to light. There's some elements of the plan that's not possible for various reasons. Either the home retention, we could not get Denali Lane to line up the way it is shown there on your plan. That was not possible. We got shut down immediately on that layout. And so you're seeing some response to the natural environment based upon how these lots are coming down to be developed. And based on the existing driveways and intersections, the streets had to be pushed a little bit. So I think you're getting something that's close, but I don't see how you could have gotten this unless someone took down the whole master plan area.
Right, and I understand that, and we have a couple other questions, but I mean, some of the give and take. I'm looking at this right now because it's like you said, it's been years. I look at a approximate gross density of 2.2 just on the slide he's looking at, with net density of 4.4 when streets and open space. We're now being pushed to 4.4 or 4 acres or 4 units per acre, and that's what you guys are developing. Or it ends up being 3. You're right, it ends up being 3. I just think we,
Actually, under the maximum density. We're less.
Yeah, removing, lot 29 puts a park, or reconfiguring it so there's, 1 or 2 less lots so that there is a larger park through the whole area, again, idealistically. So
if I could make one comment, you had mentioned that there's a give and take and that we're getting some reimbursements from DEQ on the cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the substantial costs and talking about getting rid of a lot and things like that. The money, Tim can probably speak to this a little bit better, but the money that's coming from DEQ doesn't even come close to dealing with the cleanup on there and the amount of effort it takes to actually remove this. And it's almost an open-ended book with them to come out and almost have to take it down to bedrock. So it doesn't even scratch the surface. You leave this up to DEQ, they couldn't even come close to touching and cleaning this property up. So what's actually being done here and providing a safe place for people to live, safe pathways. I live in this property and 2 or 3 people went down this driveway for the last 8 or 9 years. Now you've got 40, 50, 60 people regularly walking down the sidewalks right behind my house, actually coming out into my field because they think it's a park. This pathway will be used regularly as a spot to jog for people that live in the city. They'll be looping over to Upper Roy, going to the park that's directly across the street. It will be something that people will be walking through, and it utilizes the actual lay of the land and existing trees. So it's a nice idea, but it didn't take into consideration that people live on these properties in homes on top of these hills. You're talking about tearing those things down, and you kill density in here. You don't have the ability to develop the property in here because of the substantial costs.
Okay. All right. I see a question from Commissioner Vice Chair Kai.
Yeah, looking at what was done as far as the illustration with the Sherwood master plan, myself personally, I don't see that this necessarily needs to be so literal in terms of layout and street placement, park placement. What I feel is missing and what's disconnected from the Sherwood the Southeast Sherwood master plan and the current proposal is the intent of what I believe the intent of the Sherwood master plan with the parks. It seems like its intent was to create a type of town square park convergence or gathering point for these neighborhoods especially, and I feel like that's what's missing from the current proposal. Not saying that it's not achievable, but I feel like that's for me that's what's not provided currently. And the big part about that is, as we're going through our own comp plan update, it's been emphasized numerous times about what makes Sherwood Sherwood, and a big part of that are these walkable communities that have these gathering points for people to come and congregate and feel like that they have something unique in their neighborhoods. So I'm not saying it needs to literally be what is illustrated in the master plan illustration. But if you can achieve that in either in either creating some type of more central focal point of that open space or park space to give it that natural gathering point, which I just don't see in the current proposal.
Eric, can you show that slide again that shows all the open spaces?
Yeah, one second.
So as you can see, they tried to connect those open spaces. We've done that. We've tied our open spaces together. We've provided trails between Murdoch and into the open spaces and backed open spaces up to one another so we could continue the trails. So we had walkable communities. So we have a livable neighborhood. So you would not be able to get the trail in some of the locations that they've shown on that master plan because they're looking at it as if it's a flat piece of property, and that is not the case here.
But the trails are one component of the which I think you've done a great job of providing. The other component along with the trail is creating that central gathering point.
A sense of place.
Yeah, and I mean that could potentially be with A and D, but that's much smaller than what was potentially looked at in the master plan illustration. So I'm not saying it's our place as the commission to dictate what you do. It's more just about what I understand as the intent from the master plan and how we can try to translate that into how it develops.
I'm not really sure how to respond to your comment other than I think we've met the intent. If you look at the open space on Murdoch, we've got it generally right in the location that was on the master plan. It comes off of the northwest corner, just like it showed in the master plan, and we swing it right up through the middle. But on the lot right adjacent, right above that trail, that's where the existing house is. And so we matched that almost exactly. The road location is almost exactly where it's shown on the master plan. So I think we really have stepped up and tried to bring a project to you that does meet the intent of the master plan, given what the reality is. Homes being retained. We can't get streets where the master plan showed the streets to go because of intersections and other problems that the city would not allow to happen. The trail can't go down at the bottom of that hill the way they show it on the master plan. It needs to be at the top to connect into the Mosier property. We've created large gathering spaces. The track D and A and C are going to be spaces where people can sit and enjoy these areas. So
to that end, is there a condition that we can apply in the recommendation that we make to council that track C and track A include those amenities that you're discussing that provide that sense of place and a community or even just a neighborhood gathering opportunity?
Is that a question to the applicant or is that a question
Yes.
to you? It is.
It's a question to the applicant as, I'm going to be asking if you agree with our conditions. And so we either need to do one of two things as part of this hearing is to either make a recommendation this evening and make suggestions for conditions that we would recommend to council, or come back to a continued hearing to this body to address the concerns that are being raised about park amenities, a sense of place, and if there's any other concerns. So as we go forward, is the possibility of adding a condition to our recommendation to council that to achieve this goal and a sense of place within the neighborhood and a gathering spot that Vice Chair Kai was mentioning, a condition to ensure those amenities are in place?
I would argue that you already have those conditions in place, which is to provide you with a detailed landscape plan showing how these areas are going to be enhanced as part of the final development plan, which comes back to the planning commission. So you have it in place already, and we've heard your concerns, and so now the burden is on us to come up with a detailed landscape plan that demonstrates how these areas can be used in the way that you'd like to see them. So I don't think any other conditions are necessary, and no continued hearing is warranted, because we have to come back to you for final development plan approval, which is going to have that detailed landscape plan with the amenities.
Okay, we will continue with staff. Commissioner Kai, do you have another question, or?
Well, I was just wondering, so what's the lot that's directly under tract A?
23.
23. So, and I understand, how valuable, each and every lot is, in terms of, making the numbers work and things like that. But in terms of what we've been talking about from reality to, or from concept with a master plan to reality, if there's any possibility that lot 23 could be brought into creating into that open space for that area, I feel like that would really, in terms of size and location, help give you that sense of a central gathering point and place. I'm not sure if you're able to take what you lose from that lot from somewhere else or anything necessarily, but in terms of size and location, I think that would really get it much closer to the original master plan.
Yeah, lot 23 is one of the best lots for ability to actually accomplish anything there. We're dealing with topography, rock. It's very difficult to build on these sites here. That's a flatter lot there, and because I live there, I have the unique ability to kind of tell you what it's like on this property. And the tract C out back, when you loop up and into tract C, and you've got a pathway with benches or whatever we run down there, you're sitting there looking at Mount Hood, and you're not in the middle of a bunch of houses. What you're talking about doing there is getting people to gather next to a bunch of fences that back up. So if you want to gather somewhere, if it was me and my family, I would get as far away from backyards as possible. And I would go back and I would look at that beautiful tract C where you're looking over that corridor and you're looking at Mount Hood, and you've got all that green space back there. That's where people are naturally going to go. And
I agree with you. I think tract C could also, I mean, it's not as central, which is I think, people can get over, especially if it has, the other qualities and the beauty that you're talking about. Something that I think might be an issue is the accessibility to what is supposed to be, a large park feature for the community, essentially being pathways through easements from street to the green space.
It's very similar. It's very similar as Woodhaven. I lived in Woodhaven as well, and we would walk from park to park, and you've got those nice pathways that run down there. And when you apply the fence rule, you drop your fence down, and it feels comfortable to walk through there. To me, like I said, living there and the way that we've designed this, it makes sense for cleanup. It makes sense for the ability to walk through and circle through all of the properties. And that's what people do out there. They walk. They're very active people, and they're going to be circling through. And that area, combining those two tracks together as it is, if you go and stick a few benches along the pathway and you've got the actual flat spots for that, you're going to get people to congregate there. You're going to have that ability, and we can show that on the landscape plan to kind of get you the idea of the topo.
And I think if you guys can really emphasize tract C to have those amenities and really focus it into a high amenity city park, I think that could be a good solution. I don't know if parking or vehicle access would potentially be an issue, but I think there's good possibilities with tract C potentially there. So again, I don't want to discourage what you guys have been trying to do, having to work with topography and the existing homes, everything like that. I'm just trying to communicate what my understanding is from from us looking from the master plan to what you've done, and just trying to bring the two together. So thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we do appreciate your feedback. And when we do the landscape plan for tracks A and C, we will include track D, and so you can see how the whole area there will come together instead of just doing the portion of track A. So we'll show you what's already been done on track D, but how it will blend in with track A, so you can see the bigger space.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Giles?
So first of all, I don't know if it was set up front. I really appreciate anybody who's willing to invest time and money in the city of Sherwood. I differ a little bit on. I think that the smaller central park of Tract A and the other triangular piece, if we could have this, I'm approaching this as kind of a marketing problem, where yes, it's not as big a park, but I don't think all of our parks need to be, the same with playgrounds or gazebos or whatever it is. And so, pitching Track C as, a contemplative, meditative spot that is quieter and has got these beautiful views and is used, not as necessarily as a gathering spot of, hey, we're going to have 4th of July picnics here, but as a place to go when you want some quiet and, to take in a beautiful scene. I think that can be seen as a great asset to this community. And additionally, on I worry a little bit about some vagueness about saying, hey, we need a sense of place, I think was the term used. I think that it's difficult to force that, but I think with the landscaping, as they mentioned, the detailed landscaping to kind of paint the picture for us in the future will be something that will help to have us get a sense of that land. So I just wanted to go on the record as saying that I think that the plan itself was a concept in the abstract, and once we've kind of put shovel to dirt, we've had to adjust it a little bit. And I like the compromises made, and I think it'll help to push this forward if we can get a clearer picture of what those central areas of A and in the other Denali tract there would be like. Really give us a sense of what it would be like to sit in those areas. So thanks for the extra work on all of this.
I agree with you, Commissioner Giles, but I do think that a playground would probably still be an important aspect to development in this area, with all the families and everything with Sherwood. But
well, yes and no. I mean, what's the average starting price on these homes? Are we getting young families moving in to this neighborhood, or are these, last I saw, I think it was $900,000, right?
but I don't know that but they're still big homes.
On large
right,
spots.
but I think it's more like, hey, this is a second or third home for teenagers, right? I mean, this is not we're just starting out our family and we're looking for a place to live. You know what I mean? Like I'm the father of 5 children. I understand the need to have outdoor parks and things like that, but I don't know that this is the neighborhood for young families, really.
Okay, so.
But that might be just me. That might be a totally biased thing. I love having parks and things like that, but they don't all have to have the same amenities.
So I see Erica's hand raised, and I don't know if she's going to have us make sure that we are not under deliberation, but still asking questions of the applicant.
That is correct. I think what Commissioner Giles said is great, but I think maybe if we don't have any additional questions for the applicant, we close the public hearing and move on to discussion and deliberation.
Yeah, well, I had a couple other questions because within the neighborhood meeting, there was an assertion that the maximum height is 30 feet and 2 stories. I just want to either confirm with Eric or with the applicant that that is, if I understand that correctly. And Commissioner Vance, I'm sorry, I've missed your question, but is that?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the development code on my other computer here. I already have it up, and just make sure that that is the condition for this zoning district.
Okay, because there was some confusion at the neighborhood meeting, I think, about the connection of Upper Roy, because it does appear that in the larger scheme of things that this plan does not connect Upper Roy, but the vision for the transportation plan does include full connectivity.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that that and showing that connection through the neighboring property and sort of how it would connect and be aligned, in conformance with our transportation system plan. That's a requirement of the application to show that the development to the north can move forward at some point. So yeah, that's correct. And I have the development code up here now. So you're wondering about height, maximum height in feet, 30 or 2 stories.
Okay,
in the
so that
or PUD zone.
Okay, just wanted clarity because that was raised as a question. And then the Commissioner Vance had a question before I go on.
Yeah, I appreciate everything everybody's been saying about all this, and especially the park thing. And I guess my question is, before we lose the applicant out of this component, if it came to it, with this park and the playground thing being that big of a deal, can one be put in the tract? What is that, A and D, or is that not big enough? Maybe I'm not be able to visualize that well enough, but I mean, if it came down to it, is that a spot that one could be, or is it really, that's kind of the question, considering that's how we have the path going through and all that stuff?
I'm not sure I totally understood your question, but we did, take a comprehensive look at the property and put the open spaces where it made the most sense based on the surrounding development that was already approved. And again, the topography. And I just want to point out that, just down Upper Roy is the Murdoch City Park, which is in walking distance of this property. And that is a huge park that all these people will be able to take advantage of. This 15% open space is really to provide an amenity to the subdivision. It's for the benefit of the people living here. And then you have your city park over off of Upper Roy where everybody can congregate. People will still walk through here that don't live here and enjoy it. But really the intent of getting the open space was to the benefit of these subdivisions, and I think we did a good job of providing a nice benefit to these subdivisions by putting these open spaces where we have them.
Okay, so it's not intended to be like a city park, right there, and you wouldn't be able to put playgrounds or something in that spot, basically.
We're not trying to create that. We're not trying to create that because the city will not own it. This is going to be owned and maintained by the HOA. And so you have to recognize that we're not trying to bring in a bunch of people to the space to use amenities that they're not even paying tax dollars for. These are HOA dues that are going to maintain this. And so you do scale back a little bit, but then you look at where your surrounding parks are, and we got one right across the street.
And actually that answered kind of follow-up question, if the Parks Department or anything had been involved in any of that. I guess not.
We've tried to give parks to your city before, and they don't want them. They don't want the maintenance cost.
Out pocket parks in, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So just clarity, the architectural pattern book, there's 2 different pattern books for the 2 different developments. And all of I guess my one concern was none of these, oops, where'd it go? The map, None of these properties are adjacent to Murdoch, then all of these are interior to your own development then, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that answers one of my concerns. And okay, and I think the other questions got answered. You have to, Eric, they have to submit a parking plan with the final plat, or when it comes back to us, there'll be a parking.
I'm not familiar off the top of my head with the submittal requirements for the final development plan. If that was a requirement in the past, then it would be, a requirement now. I think Eric you were involved in some of that discussion. Are you talking about in terms of on-street or off-street parking plan, or both?
There's confusion between two of the agency reports and how the staff report. Well, I think one of the agencies said there would be no parking at all on D, E, and F, and then the other one said if there was parking on the street, then the garbage would have to be taken down. So I just would want clarity that I thought TV, F, and R said no parking on.
Whatever the more restrictive is would apply. So if TVF and R comments are saying that private tracks, cannot accommodate parking, then they wouldn't be able to accommodate parking.
And I ended up with too many notes I have to flip to a new page to.
Yeah, I do recall that the TVF and R comments say the tracks will have to be signed with no parking, I believe is the language in there.
Okay. And then one thing I didn't see in the staff report, which we've had concerns with in the community, is where their streets are stubbing into that vacant land, or to the vacant land to the north, that we need to ensure that they have the future development signage on that. And I didn't see that as a condition. And
that would absolutely be required, and that would be reviewed through the final engineering plan review. It's really, the requirement is kind of coming from engineering, and the standard is in the engineering design manual. But yeah, they would have to comply with that engineering detail in terms of appropriate signage and barriers at the end of the stub street.
Yeah, I thought we had been putting it in as a condition of approval, either here or in the site plan, that they have to have the signage on the stub streets. So I was wanting to make sure the applicant heard those additional conditions before we close the public hearing. So I guess I'd ask the applicant one other question, which is to confirm you are in agreement with all the conditions that have been laid out by staff, and I've not heard you raise any concerns of the existing conditions as written.
There is one maybe that we would like to discuss. No, excuse me, apparently we don't. We've moved on from that issue.
Okay.
And so I think at this point, yeah, we are comfortable with the conditions of approval as they are proposed.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions or potential changes or additions to the conditions before we ask for, I guess, could ask for rebuttal testimony? All right. I don't see any more questions of the commission from the commission. Does the applicant have any final rebuttal testimony before we close the public hearing part of this?
I guess I'll just make a final comment that, you can see from the size of these lots, I know parking has been a concern for the city of Sherwood for some time, and we're happy to provide a parking plan, but I think you can see from the size of these lots and what's been done already from the developer, there are going to be 2 to 3 car garages on every lot, and we're going to have a 20-foot deep driveway at a minimum, because that's what we have for a garage setback. So you're going to have at least 4 off-street parking spaces and potentially 5. There could be a 3-car garage. So I think you can see there's going to be plenty of off-street parking, and there will also be on-street parking on that new public street as well, between driveways.
All right. Excellent. All right, so I see no other hand raises. At this point, I believe we will close the public testimony. Does the staff have anything else to add?
Not at this time, unless there are specific questions of staff. Len, unless Erica has anything else to add.
I do not.
Okay, I do have a question about what we can expect to see in the final, when it comes back to us the next time. Do you anticipate with the landscaping plan that the open space will be, do we need to make sure the condition fully addresses that, or is the condition already written to accommodate a landscaping plan with the amenities or open space amenities that were discussed in this hearing?
Yeah, so, in writing that condition, it falls under the landscaping standards, and so my position on it is that it really is geared more towards just the landscaping and meeting the landscaping requirements. Normally in those, when they come in, if it's a smaller open space, they would just show the benches, where they are and some of the pathways. But I think, given the discussion that has already occurred, I think it probably would be a good idea to just modify that slightly. You can add language about parkscaping, public amenities, whatever else it is that you'd like to see there in the final plan, because when that was written, it was really geared just towards plantings and meeting the planting requirements.
Okay. Usually I have a chance, when we're in the room all together, to pass a note or do a high five to know if we need to craft a particular piece of language on the fly so that the rest of the commission can vote on it. And I usually give Eric a Hail Mary sign to help me out to find out proper protocol on whether we need to do, as a commission, draft specific language or find out where it needs to be added to. I don't know which I don't have my conditions memorized. You might think I do, but I don't.
Yep, I'm gonna pull them up here. Let's see.
So I think additional wording maybe on that landscaping.
I think it's B14.
There's about 3 conditions under the subsection of B that relate to the landscaping plan. So B2 is the first reference.
Okay.
Yeah, and there may be a more appropriate approval criteria to sort of put this, this revised condition under. I think it could go under the landscaping requirements, because it's what's related to the open space. So I think it could, we could just modify whichever one in B currently addresses landscaping. Alternatively, we could focus in on one of the criteria related to open space and sort of put it under there. But if the applicant is open to it, I think just modifying one of the existing conditions would probably be the easiest.
So we've already closed the public hearing, so we can't, unless I reopen it, can't get any more testimony from the applicant. So it's up to the commission to take an action, and the council hearing is where the applicant would have to address any concerns they have over a condition that we've already done. I don't want to cause confusion. Once we've closed the public hearing, we're not able to take their testimony. So
Yeah, let me pull it. I'm going to pull up the staff report really quickly and see where, where this should go under.
I had, and I think it might even be cleaner, instead of trying to piece together several places that reference landscaping. This isn't necessary landscaping. If we could just define open space amenities, and in your staff report, the finding is as discussed at the hearing, or I don't know if we need full drafted language here. I'm trying to. That's why almost a continuance on these more complicated ones makes it easier than doing this on the fly.
There is I'm going to scroll down to it right now. There is one criteria within the subdivision criteria that addresses, usable open space. And I'm going to pull that up.
Links. Okay. How does the commission feel about trying to do this right now on the fly versus providing staff general direction and coming back with, well, they won't be able to come back with this unless we continue.
So I'm going to step in here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think what you can do is we can go ahead and craft a condition, B17, and it would read something, I don't have the exact language, but prior to site plan approval, the applicant shall provide an array of open space amenities. And that gives them the choice to provide what amenities they want to show within that landscaping plan.
We'll provide a detailed plan of open space amenities.
Open space amenities.
Yeah.
And then we can go back in the staff report and just modify the finding in the open space criteria section that highlights your discussion here this evening.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just say not prior to site plan approval, but prior to final development plan.
Development, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we're not able to take testimony from the applicant, correct?
Just a comment to help you.
Yes, I know. Okay. There were a couple, I know this is killing me, a couple of typos on page 12 and page 44 that I can email you. Commissioner Bantz?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of curious, just so I understand how the code and approvals work in this. There's been a lot of talk about the concept plan, the original concept plan. There were comments made about it not really, was never approved or I guess enforced. So I guess my question is, to what extent can that concept plan, which clearly calls for public parks type stuff, this and that, be enforced here? Versus if it can't be, is it a matter of just looking at code criteria and conditions of approval there? And this is obviously kind of different than the concept plan. It had public stuff. This is HOA closed shop. That's how it reads to me. And maybe that's okay under code, and that's what's been presented. So I'm just kind of curious, is that something that's even worth pursuing, looking at, or is this, are we just looking at this strictly from a matter of code and if it fits at this point?
So under if they were developing this as what it's zoned very low residential, then the code is very specific. You have this setback, and this amount of open space, which is prescribed, and so it has no subjective nature to it. When they go through the PUD process, there are a couple of subjective, I don't know if you call them subjective, but criteria that have to be met, and staff's statements have been that they met the criteria. And my question was that based on the original picture that we had been working from, one of the criteria that's on page 16 says there is a pedestrian friendly transportation system that links the site. So does that meet the criteria, the spirit of the PUD process, and what the Southwest Sherwood Master Plan intent was? And back to your point that Southeast Sherwood Master Plan was not formally adopted in its entirety, which creates a problem.
Ambiguity.
To some, yeah, ambiguity is better. But that's where I've been struggling with it, because you had a vision. Obviously, we're not going to have people tear down existing homes, but is 2 10,000 square foot lots and Track C provide what the intent of the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan was, which is to provide a open space as an amenity to the community. And that's, as a commission, a struggle that we have to answer, which is to say, is Track C and those 2 10,000 square foot lots providing something that is a benefit to the community that we would not have gained through a regular site plan. Regular site plan would have been 40,000 square foot lots on individual houses on big lots.
And Gene, remember, while the master plan wasn't adopted, which doesn't, give us the whatever to try to ensure that it meets that design. We are in the PUD process that, from my understanding, does give us a little bit more ability to kind of require greater benefits to the community at large versus just the development itself.
To ensure that there's a public benefit to this.
What's odd is the homeowners that all be paying for it, not the city.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we in deliberation time right now?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I kind of have a problem. All right, I have a problem a little bit with, even if we say, hey, we want a playground there, and then the homeowners insurance, the HOA's insurance for that goes up, and all the other stuff, and it is like the gentleman said, Steve said, it is right across the street from a massive park that is fun to play at. It's got this massive thing at it. I don't see the value of having, a tiny park. I would rather like a tiny play structure or something there. I would rather embrace this open space as something different than the other space that is just across the street, and give our residents a variety of places. And so if this is, a meditation garden with, something that is, the beautiful views, I don't know, a rock to focus on or something like that to me, that speaks to a different kind of open space that still meets the intent of the plan.
I think yes, and I think you sold me better than I sold myself, that if Tract C and A and D combined have amenities that allow the community, like you said, a reflective place to go that is a unique open space that can be utilized by the community. We just need to ensure through conditions and our follow-up that we get the intent of what we're discussing tonight.
Well, but how much can the community at large utilize it if it's not built or designed as or accessible like an actual park would be. Some issues I'm thinking about with Tract C in terms of its accessibility, especially for vehicular access with no parking lot. Is it just going to be down to the street parking for the city at large? Again, versus just the residents within the community who have the ability to utilize the walking paths and access it, without vehicles.
That's a great point. And by the way, it's a different kind of park, right? I don't see the value necessarily of having a big parking lot there, or even a 2 or 3 space parking area that is for me to go and walk and contemplate. I see it as with the paths that are tied in, you might park a little bit further away, or you may walk to it as the destination. That might be the turnaround point or the end point of an evening jog or walk to go, or to go enjoy that spot. It is not a place where like Sunset, where you're going to park, you're going to have large gatherings and parties, and you have to have that kind of a parking spot. This is a different kind of space that, frankly, I think it enhances the community to have, hey, I want some time where just, I know it's not going to be busy and it's only going to be, 4 or 5 people, or it's going to be transient, and I'm going to go and I'll have, I'll watch a sunset and then I'll carry on. It's not a.
And I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, without the typical forms of accessibility or the minimum requirements of accessibility, does it really meet that public benefit of a PUD? And I don't quite feel that it is.
So now the tie-ins to the paths, right? I don't know what Murdoch's going to look like after all this construction, but I see people running up and down that all day. I mean, I live off of Murdoch, and so I see it, and as soon as a path is opened up that's a new path, you will get, it will immediately be publicized as there's a new place to run, a new place to see, and so it will, I don't worry about it being an inaccessible place. I see it more as being you would have to discover it intentionally. It's not a place that you'll just happen upon.
But that's like Woodhaven. Woodhaven has those types of paths also.
Right, and I mean, that's part of what I love about Sherwood is sometimes, I'm walking through Sherwood and I find something, I go, I had no idea this was here, and I love it, and it becomes a little secret place, I guess. But I don't, like, I get the point, Commissioner Kai, like
and again, I'm just trying to think practically too, is because if it is as inviting as they're talking about with the views of Mount Hood and everything like that, I mean, are you going to get lots of residents trying to access it from further away where they can't walk to it, with their vehicles? Is that without planning ahead for parking, is that going to cause an issue for the residents who are there in terms of the street parking and crowding, and so yeah. I definitely see what you're talking about, but I'm just trying to think about the pragmatic needs or parts to it as well.
So can we split the baby a little? I mean, if there was bike parking, or if there was bike, something like, so that it's not meant to be a regional draw or anything. I mean, like Sunset Park is a crown jewel in the case of Sherwood, but it pulls people from all over the place, that need to come and be accommodated for that. Is there a way that we can say, hey, with street parking of 5 cars and bike parking where you can lock up bikes or whatever, that's enough? Because it's not meant to be a huge gathering spot.
So,
but at the same time, that's kind of what it's pitched at, or at least in terms of its draw. So, like I'm just trying to get this to match up with what is it really intended to be, and how do we best ensure that it's successful in that. Because if we create it as a great amenity, but then with no way for it to be able to function properly, then what benefit is that? So
yeah, it feels. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gene.
I was going to say we're probably going to not be able to solve this between the discussion. I don't know how. I see that the applicant's going to have to bring back open space amenities. Your point of having bicycle parking so that the local area draw is addressed. The on-street parking will be part of the parking plan. That's going to be, we'll be able to see the parking when they bring the site plan back, I believe, if I remember correctly, and Eric may be able to correct me if I'm wrong. We have another hearing, so I want to make sure that if we are not going to be able to resolve this, that we either continue it or wrap it up so that we have time for the second hearing. So
Another one.
Yeah.
Gene, I just want to add one more point of comparison from the master plan to the current plan. With the master plan, there was the way the park was designed. It wasn't behind houses. It had direct street access all the way around it, and a benefit to that obviously is the parking that provides for that park directly. So the way again there's a lot of benefit to Track C, but I think there's parts missing. So
yeah, I agree, and that's
Commissioner Simpson or Chair Simpson.
Is it that we make sure our language is clear? These are not parks; these are open spaces.
So, Commissioner Bantz has a question.
Well, I'll comment. I'm going to make sure I'm reading the right criteria here on page 16. Trying to make sure I understand what it says. So it says that preliminary development plans include dedication of at least 15% of the buildable portion of the site to the public in the form of usable open space, park, or other public space, or to a private entity managed by homeowners association. It looks like these guys picked to a private entity managed by a homeowners association. That's what they picked. So I'm not sure to what extent this language allows us to require them to provide a bunch of amenity to the public at their homeowner's expense. I think that's desirable. If there's a way we can encourage that, that's great. And hopefully they would want to help with that to some degree. But I'm just reading this language kind of not sure to what extent we can require that with. If that is a requirement, this is a big public thing, the public should pay. Like the city should probably step in and do part of that.
Hal, it also says,
I read this anyway, unless I'm reading it wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot to this PUD, and that's the problem with it not being adopted, because the next page says there are view corridors identified in the Southeast Sherwood Master Plan that says from the top of the hill park, there is a view corridor that goes all the way out. They have now run houses all the way down that strip, and they're substituting C. So there's no direct, that's my challenge. That's what I think I started with, is there's no direct correlation when the shovel starts moving and there's still houses that are existing. So I agree with you. There's minor disconnects throughout each part of it. I don't know how you.
It's a bit murky, but I do think it's good to ask them for condition, at least statements to this end is a good idea, just for the public benefit, but it's going to be working, I think.
That's why it goes to council, because they can approve. That's why it becomes a very legislative matter, because they're providing a final say in this. So say again your concern about, are are you saying addressing or asking them is not what you would be interested in the open space amenities?
I'm sorry, rephrase the question.
I say, are you having a concern about us asking for open space amenities that we're trying to put in as a condition?
Based on my read of that criteria, I think yes, but I'm also not as experienced as some of you guys are with all of the code and how all this works.
Okay, so I'm gonna call for Commissioner Widola, and then I'll call for a vote of the commission before we add a new condition then. Commissioner Widola?
Do you have me for audio again? I'm having audio issues.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure in our language, is it important for us to not refer to these as parks, but as open spaces? Because parks sort of, extend a much bigger, city-owned, lots of facilities. If I understand this right, for open spaces, we're talking about park benches, nice views, trails, pretty basic things, maybe a post with dog waste bags, things along those lines, right? Similar to what's in Woodhaven.
Correct, and I think we're probably incorrectly using them interchangeably. You're right, we're probably incorrectly using them interchangeably. It looked like a top of the hill park, but what we're going to be getting are two connected open spaces.
Yeah, and this is private HOA owned, so there's only so much that we can do. And aren't we solving this with B17 that we decided to add with, making sure we get prior to final development plan approval, we get their plan for open space amenities, and doesn't that solve the challenge we're debating here?
Yes, and so there's been a question on whether that is appropriate or not. So I'd just like to take a call of the commission to whether or not if we have a agreement to add condition B17 before we ask for a full motion on the application in its entirety. So just on B17, just a yes or no, and probably
B17, the new one we were talking about, or
the new one where we're going to be asking for an open. Erica or Commissioner Widola, do you have the language that Erica provided?
I scribbled some things down. I don't think it got correct. I think from testimony from the applicant, we want to say prior to final development plan approval, developer will provide detailed amenities for open areas is what I wrote down. I don't know. That probably needs to be wordsmithed a little bit.
But plus or minus a few wordsmiths from staff, that will be B17 if it's approved by the commission. Vice Chair Kai?
Yes.
Commissioner Widola?
Yes.
Commissioner Giles?
Yes.
Commissioner Harsh?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Vance?
I think it does allow for requiring some kind of amenity in here, but it's to whose benefit. So yes, I think we can require the condition. We'll see it.
All right, and Commissioner, I vote yes also. So we now have added a B17 regarding the open space amenities. That will be wordsmithed by staff prior to the city council hearing. All right. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Vance, thank you for raising the issue. I do appreciate just that perspective that, make sure that we're all on board with the same understanding.
You bet.
Commissioner Kai, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something that concerned me during the applicant's testimony was speaking to these open spaces, and I'm not directly quoting or anything, but what was discussed was speaking about these open spaces as that they're not for the public benefit, that they're for the residents' direct use. HOAs will be taking care of them, et cetera, et cetera. And again, that would be understandable or acceptable in just a standard proposal, but in a PUD, is that is that what is that acceptable? Is that what we, again, since we as a city are giving various concessions in exchange for public benefit, but that's not what's being pitched to us.
Because it's PUD, I get it.
Okay. Well, I guess I asked the question. So, Eric, are we understanding the PUD and the public benefit part of this correctly as we go through this process, that the open space is for the public benefit and it will be used by the public, not just the homeowners?
The way that we have, we do have a condition of approval, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, that would require the open spaces to be open to the general public. And so whether that's through a deed or some other, mechanism, usually it'd be through a deed, just, stating that the areas are open to the public, even though they're owned and maintained by an HOA. The conditions of approval right now, and the staff's, findings and conditions indicate that, that the PUD requirement for open space is intended to be for public use.
Okay, and that's not unusual within our community, because the D.R. Horton project on the other side of 99 has a similar open space requirement that has a few exercise type amenities and like a dog park or something that the HOA does. Is that not? I'm asking you. It's probably Erica that would
I'm not familiar with that project, Erica.
That's okay, but you had your hand raised, so did you want to provide direction to us?
So the only other, I guess, with condition of approval, B17, I just wanted to clarify what criteria we're putting that under, if that's needed at this point. But to me, just to clarify, I think it would go under the PUD criteria. So it's 16.40.020, which is PUD preliminary development plan, and then subsection C, which is commission review, and then the approval criteria for the commission, subsection 2, which then refers to the open space and the usable open space. So to me, that's where the condition of approval, B17, should, that's the condition really satisfies that criteria.
Okay. And you'll adjust the finding on page 24 to reflect our discussion then?
Yeah, and that criteria in the staff report is actually on page 16. So it would go.
Oh, I'm going to packet page, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the staff report. Yeah, so that sounds like on the same page there.
Yeah, and I know I pointed out to Erica, your staff report numbers aren't on the internet. The packet page numbers are on the website. So we always go by packet page. So, all right.
Thank you.
Cool. And then do we have a motion to, for this action, to either continue it or to vote on it for this evening?
Erica,
subject to the final language, or how does that work?
What the finding and the finding
of the new condition?
So I guess in my history, pre-COVID, we would normally on a PUD have the opportunity to have seen it earlier in the 120-day rule, in the 120-day process. This application is under the 120-day timeline, and the applicant was adamant about not doing any tolling the 120 days, which, because of the timing, we would not be able to continue it, which means we have to craft findings and conditions on the fly, and or allow staff to do that. Unless I missed something, Erica or Eric, did I miss?
No, so we've crafted the condition. We've talked about adding the additional finding to the criteria that Eric had mentioned in the staff report. What we can do is, if you go ahead and recommend this for approval to City Council, we will fix the staff report to reflect what Planning Commission has said tonight, and then we can send it to the commission, you know, prior to it going to City Council for your review.
Okay, that help
just
everybody?
I guess a point, if they're not going to be able to make changes, right?
We can't make changes as a planning commission, but it's a de novo hearing if someone wanted to testify. Or we could provide testimony to city staff just like any other member of the public could, right?
Right.
But not as a commission.
Correct. That is 100% correct. But I feel pretty confident. We just have one finding and one extra condition that will get this right.
Okay. And then I should have probably called Eric with my on page 12, your staff report, page 5, number 7. The following agencies acknowledge the application expressing any issues. And I think that just means I think they acknowledged the application but did not express any issues or concerns.
Correct. Yes, correct. Thank you.
And I was going to say with under the agency comments, DEQ provided, I don't know how they because they didn't send it to you, it doesn't count, but they had provided information that was included in the applicant submittal.
Yeah, just to clarify that information came as part of the applicant submittal, and so they were just collecting the information from DEQ and then submitting it on their own behalf. We did route the application to DEQ, but did not receive any comment.
Okay, and then on page 44, you have it as Toy Street.
That's a fun one. What did I call it? Toy Street. All right.
Upper Toy Street.
Oh, Upper Toy Street. That's a fun one. Thank you. We'll address that as well.
Okay, and I think that got all my questions. I had looked at all the setbacks, and again, I'll just state for the record that normally I would have had a lot of angst about having reduced setbacks all over the place at 9 out of 40 lots, but because these are all interior to their own project, we're not impacting existing neighborhoods because they're their own development. So that I'm not setting precedent that we should do all setbacks all over the place. It's just that within their own neighborhood, they're not affecting neighbors that already have houses that they wouldn't have anticipated that. So, all right. Any other questions or comments before we have a motion?
Erica, so as far as the motion, would it need to be recommend with modifications? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then for the modifications, is it enough just to state with the added modification of B17?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. And then just wondering myself, when we forward this to council, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of concern in this hearing. And so just, is there a best way within the motion to express for council to take into consideration, the concerns that we brought up during the hearing? Is there a way that needs to be included in the motion?
you can include it in your recommendation to council for to have them review, review your concerns, to at least acknowledge that you had concerns. I don't know what
or maybe a recommendation that the staff report include that where most of our conversation was centered around through the evening, so that they can, when they read the staff report, when they get it a week ahead of time, the staff report would direct them to where our concerns were. And then if they had further questions, they could reach out more directly to get that information.
And typically we do that in all staff reports to council. If there were any concerns during the hearing,